All right, y'all. It's June the 9th, 2018, and earlier we were doing a stream. We were getting stuff together. I had Deb on hand and stuff, and we're about to cover, what's in the title right here that you're seeing. All right, that stream. We covered quite a bit, actually. Covered quite a bit until I realized that the stream had been cut off due to technology failing me once again. All right, got cut off. So I realized after many minutes of talking to myself that I was indeed talking to myself. And this app in particular that I'm using right now, it tends to cut off. Hopefully it doesn't cut off in the middle of what I'm saying right now. But I'm recording it. I'm not live streaming it just because I want to see if I can get it all out. I don't really like repeating myself necessarily. And we covered a lot. I went back to the stream to see where it is that it left off. And it was pretty interesting. Let's see if I could play it. Play it here, just so that if you didn't see the previous video, here's the previous video, the ending and where it ended off.
Hey y'all.
That's the beginning.
Accurate. We know nothing. But let's think about a hypothetical, totally different other scenario in a different other fantasy land that we're just thinking about. Imagine if Anthony Bordaine had enemies. All right, they might hang him from a doorknob just to send a message or something like that. In fact, they might do it over and over just to send messages. We're talking hypothetically. Who would they be sending?
And so that's where the live stream cut off. It actually cut off at the perfect time when you think about it comically. Perhaps they snatched me up. Or perhaps they cut off my account and they called me a troll with hate speech. More than likely, I just had technical difficulties. The live stream cut out. All right, but that's how that particular video ended. This is kind of a continuation of that particular video. And which we were talking about, let's see. We were having a stream and we were talking about Anthony Bourdain. And just hypotheticals, let's imagine because we're just talking about fiction right now. We're just talking about speculation. But what if Anthony Bourdain did have enemies, and what if they were sending a message such as, I don't know, just don't walk out the door on us. Don't you just walk out on the door on us because we'll hang you from a doorknob. And we'll do it in front of all y'all friends so that they don't walk out the door on us. All right. It sounds pretty sinister. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but I'm saying, wouldn't that be sinister if that were to happen? And in this hypothetical world, wouldn't it make sense that, I don't know, I'm not saying like CNN, but people getting that money from CNN, or people who got whatever they're doing from CNN, because CNN isn't popular. You know what I'm saying? There's really no one who watches CNN except to see the outrageous calamity that comes from out of CNN. All right, it's not popular. Case in point, Anthony Bourdain, from what I understand, was number one on CNN. He was the one pulling in ratings. He was their ratings guy, Anthony Bourdain. This guy is not even a news guy. And he doesn't, from what I understand, claim to be. He's a chef. Amongst other things and stuff, man, he was traveling around just eating food and stuff and being slick, being real cool. I seen a couple of videos from him because I didn't know who he was. I saw one where he was talking to Joe Rogan, and he seemed like a pretty laid-back, cool guy. He seemed like he had it all together, basically. Right? He seems like the kind of guy who would pull in, number one, ratings over at CNN, which is not a legitimate... Hypothetically, in this hypothetical world, is absolutely not legitimate. It used to be mainstream. It's not even close to mainstream anymore. Nobody watches it except to make fun of it. All right? And so, in that hypothetical situation, what if, it's all speculation, alleged, but what if Anthony Bourdain was planning on walking out on CNN? What if he just had enough? All right, and CNN, like a jealous lover, was like, oh, you think you're going to walk out on me? You're going to walk out that door, huh? Oh, no, I don't think so. And then proceeds to sending a message. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm saying it kind of sounds more reasonable than even hanging oneself from a doorknob to begin with. All right, sounds pretty unreasonable. But actually, I did want to bring up. See if I go back. See if I go back to where we're at. I wanted to bring up this video, and when I got cut off, I was bringing up this video. It's from the Think Club. All right, and it's a long video and stuff. I'm sorry that you had. We're not going to cover all of it and stuff, but just, I mean.
2 centuries ago, the great man of German literature, Johann von Goethe.
They're talking about all sort of like great thinkers and stuff, man. This is a PhD writer and stuff. Basically, he's just reading from his book. It's called Influence, and it has to do with this Anthony Bourdain situation. All right, it's from the Think Club. Like as you can see, it's titled "Stay Safe, Friends," and I do recommend it for people out there who are even thinking about this Anthony Bourdain situation. If you're thinking about it a lot, I would encourage you to see what this video has to say, and subsequently the book and other various powerful thinkers throughout time have been studying. And basically, just to give it a brief summary, they've been studying like highly publicized suicides in particular. All right, as a case study, highly publicized suicides and their correlation basically to accidental deaths. All right, and those particular areas that were that it was highly publicized, and you're going to know that there is a spike, and it seems to be a correlation. Now, I'm not the wizard of statistics. I don't know nothing for certain, but people pulled in sort of statistics that would imply that there absolutely is a correlation between, like we were saying, these highly publicized suicides and accidental deaths, to include and especially car accidents and plane crashes and things of this nature. Right? There's a correlation. You start to, if you consider the correlation, you start to understand, well, people become more reckless with their lives once hearing about these suicides. And it's actually very specific the way that it was described in this video and in that book. This book right here, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. It was actually pretty specific in that, like, say, for example, if it was a suicide, a lone suicide, you would experience a spike in car accidents, including only one person. And for example, if it's one of these mass shooter things where it's a suicide, homicide, all sort of homicide and suicide, you're going to notice, for example, a spike in car accidents, including more than one person, including all sort of people. So there's a correlation in that way. And for example, they noted that if you see, like, say, a young person committing suicide, it's highly publicized. We talk about that sometimes on this channel. Then what you can see is correlation in that particular area of young people getting into car accidents, and conversely, old people, if they committed suicide, you're going to see old people getting into these accidents, and that's going to spike. All right, it's very correlated. Basically, what it implies is all sort of imitation, and that when we hear about it so much, we become reckless ourselves. And it makes me think about and ponder about a situation where, imagine if everybody around you is committing suicide. All sort of people, like, a person or two every day who committed suicide. Chances are you yourself would commit suicide as well. It would be overwhelming. But that's just on the extreme. We're very, very, very much influenced by what others do around us. Not only that, what others who we can relate to. If we can relate to them, we're very much influenced by what they have done when they have taken their own life. We become reckless with our own lives. All right, in a way that we might not even understand. Maybe it's all subconscious, but it gets to us. And I think it's important to, remember that and think about that. And maybe, see all the details that this book outlines and stuff like this, and just to think about that and ponder on that, because we become very reckless with our lives and stuff like that. Also, I wanted to talk about what's not so much. It is in the news, but you're not going to hear about it as much. probably as Anthony Bourdain, and I thought there would be a video here, but there isn't. Go ahead and bring it up. We got Charles Krauthammer. A lot of people may or may not know him, but I wanted to bring him up as well because we're thinking about Anthony Bourdain and we're thinking about him soberly. Nobody's excited, like, nobody feels good from it. And it seems that more likely people are going to become more reckless with their lives, and you're going to see an influx of suicide. It seems like statistically it's depressing. A lot of people find it depressing. And while we're thinking about that and pondering on that sort of thing, I wanted to bring up this man right here, Charles Krauthammer, who is very, very widely known, especially in his circles, and widely acclaimed, like very much celebrated, Charles Krauthammer. And the thing is, I didn't know a great deal about Charles Krauthammer, to be honest with you. I would watch Tucker Carlson from time to time, especially, a little while back. I don't know, it's Charles Krauthammer coming on every once in a while. The thing is, what I found in particular, specifically most enjoyable about Charles Krauthammer is that you're not going to necessarily agree with him, and it's very blunt about it, all right, about his opinions and his stances and why he thinks the way he does. You're not always going to agree with him, but you're going to respect him. You're going to respect why he's saying what he's saying. All right, he's very dignified. I mean, just a gentleman. I mean, that's the impression that I always got from Charles Krauthammer. Come to find out, it seems that it's been recent news that he's been given only like a few weeks to live. Like, he's still alive, but there's been a cancer, and that cancer has gone, like, extreme, or however you call it. It's advanced, and so he's only got a few weeks. And, I think it's important. But because Charles Krauthammer, I think you could definitely put him on the same level as a lot of people would be putting Anthony Bourdain in, for good reason. All right, so also, it's time to think about Charles Krauthammer and stuff and what he's provided and all the work that he's put in and all his different stances. He's definitely been a man of reason and logic, and a gentleman at that. I wanted to think about those two individuals tonight, real quick. I wanted to think about them, and of course we get sad, like we were saying, we all become influenced. We hear about it. Not necessarily all of us are going to become reckless with our lives, but some of us probably will, as things go. I want to think about those two guys right now. And of course it's sad, it makes us feel sad. We hate to say goodbye. That's the thing about it. Most of us do. When you consider us as human beings, man, break it down before we get out of here, we hate to say goodbye. Most times. Sometimes people say goodbye so much that they just become numb to it. And they're all off to themselves and stuff to become loners. Things of this nature. There's plenty of reasons why this happens. All right. Hate to say goodbye. The reason is because, conversely, we love to feel at home. We love the feeling of going back home. All right. Certain sort of feeling to it. It's very comfortable. It's very luxurious. The thing is, for example, you could go to a hotel, and it could be comfortable. It could be luxurious, but at the end of the day, it's not going to feel like you're home. I don't know what we should look at. The thing is, it's not going to feel like you're home necessarily being at a hotel, and once you get back home, you're going to feel a certain sort of a way, a certain sort of comfort. And people love that. And lots of times for example, you have to say goodbye to that, and you have to go onwards. You have to go somewhere else. You have to do something else. You long for that feeling of going back home and stuff. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. All right. I want to suggest to y'all, everybody out there, that heaven does exist. All right. Someone's going to tell you that they know the rules for certain about who goes to heaven and who doesn't. Well, all right. But the thing is, I can't tell you one way or another exactly how people get into heaven. I'm not the gatekeeper necessarily, but I'm here to suggest for your consideration, it absolutely does exist. All right. And if you wonder maybe what that feels like, I'm here to probably suggest that it is like the feeling of going home. All right. But times a million, times a million billion. All right. That is the feeling. The feeling of, you might have to say goodbye this one last time, but it's only one more time. And then after that, well, you're home. You're home forever. You get that feeling that you get, that good feeling when you return home, but except you get it times a million, and you get it forever and ever. That's, what I'm saying, that's a way to describe it. I'm sure there's many more other ways to describe it. And it's for that reason that I hear these people, and it's unfortunate, and like I said, we get depressed, but at the very same time, I don't necessarily get jealous of them, but I feel I'm happy for them, in a sense, because it's a long, hard road sometimes, and it is very short and abrupt, but lots of times feels like a very long, hard road that we are walking down, right? And these people walk down long roads, and finally they get the relief of going to heaven, and I hope they do go to heaven. All right, but I'm not in charge of that. I'm really not in charge of that. At the end of the day, as individuals, we're the only ones in charge of it for ourselves. All right, but if you like that feeling about going back home, I suggest that you give it your best shot. Probably going back home, staying there. But at the same time, I personally wouldn't encourage you to end your life abruptly, such as with, a suicide or reckless behavior, such as these car accidents. I wouldn't recommend that because what I want you to understand is everybody who relates to you, specifically, only those who relate to you will be hurt the most. You understand? I mean, if you were to commit a suicide or something like this, or you were to have a very public car accident, and people hear about it and it's very widely known, the more widely known you are, unfortunately, the more death is going to come behind that. And that's just the way it is. It's not something that I can control or that you can control. It will happen. And it will happen to those who relate to you the most. Something to think about. Anyway, so I'll holler at y'all. God bless all y'all, and I appreciate all y'all. For so, it's June the 9th, 2019, and I'll holler at y'all a little bit later.